Is that the family is there? So we'll see.
Since we're a small group, I want to ask everybody if you can come close to the front. If it creates more of a sense of community. Hi, Jim. So we are here to celebrate the life of Marcia Gordon and also to mourn her passing and to come together as a community to remember a life well lived. I'm going to begin with a psalm called I Lift My Eyes Up to the Mountains. I lift my eyes up to the mountains. From where does my help come? I lift my eyes up to the mountains. From where does my help come? My help comes from the source, from that which makes the skies and the earth. My help comes from the source, from that which makes the skies and the earth. Esa enai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Esa enai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai Ose Shamayim ve'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai Ose Shamayim ve'aretz. I'm going to call on Joshua to read a poem by Khalil Gibran called The River Cannot Go Back.
The river cannot go back. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there's no other way the river can go back, cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean because only then will fear disappear, because that's where the river will know. It's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean.
Marcia Mendelsohn Gordon was the youngest of 5 children born to Polish Jewish parents who escaped the growing Nazi threat in Europe. I learned from her children that Yiddish was her first language, and she learned English alongside her mother. Her children remember the story of how Marcia's bedroom, when her family lived in Hempstead, New York, was a closet. And it was so small that her feet stuck out. She loved learning, and she was a wonderful student. Her parents didn't have much money for college, so she applied for and received scholarship money to attend Queens College for a degree in English, and then she received scholarship funding towards a degree in social work in Chicago. Later on, she earned an MA from University of Denver in mediation, and she trained in medical record technology, and then something that was the true love of her life, work-wise, she taught ESL to refugees at Auraria. Marcia worked on Long Island at Pilgrim State Hospital with mentally ill children, and when she arrived in Colorado for a relationship that actually didn't work out, but she arrived here, she worked with immigrants and refugees at Jewish Family Services. She connected clients with food, housing, and social services. She then got a job at Denver General working with mentally ill youth, and she loved it. From all her work choices, you can tell that she was such a deep mensch. Marcia met her husband Gerald at Denver General. Gerald, an ER cardiologist, asked Marcia out for lunch, and when they met, I learned that Gerald shook her hand and didn't let go. Marcia was direct and said she wanted to get married, and she and Gerald dated for 9 months. They got married and they had their first child, Joshua. Gerald was worried that Marcia would be bored having kids, but she wasn't. She loved being a mom. When I was talking with Hava and Rebecca and Joshua about a week and a half ago, they told me all about how Marcia was an amazing mom. She wanted her kids to be independent. She gave them permission to just be who they were, to explore the world and study what they wanted. Her bottom line was always sensible. As long as you're safe, I'm cool with that. Marcia empowered her kids to seek their own answers, and she wanted them to be happy and good people. Rebecca remembers that Marcia would bake for hours to make Hanukkah cookies for everyone. And Joshua remembers that at Shabbat dinner, she would spend a half hour naming everyone in the family and acknowledging them. Hava told me that Marcia was the one who knew all of her ancestors' names. She was the family history memory keeper. And she was hardly in pictures because she was usually the one behind the camera. She didn't seek the limelight. She never sought credit for the important role she played in people's lives. She was happy to be the powerhouse in the background. Marcia was fully engaged with life. She loved the adventure of travel. She went to Mexico by herself. She visited Israel. She went to the Grand Canyon and Yellowstone with Rebecca and Hava. Her children fondly remember lots of road trips through the Midwest and New York. Gerald and Marcia were active at Congregation Rodef Shalom. They attended Shabbat services, they participated in study groups, and Marcia loved to walk, do water aerobics, and do crossword puzzles. She had an active and inquisitive mind. She was interested in geology, history, science, philosophy, and Jewish philosophy. Above all, Marcia was a mensch. She supported people to be their best selves. Connecting people to one another was how she expressed her love and care. She was always helping people, even in the nursing home. She had a great sense of humor and curiosity. She was kind, playful, and she deeply loved her family and friends. She was so very loved, and she will be missed by all of you who loved her. I'm going to call on Joshua and Rebecca and Hava to say a few words about your mom.
I want to thank everybody for coming out. And as Karen said, at our Shabbat ceremonies, my mom would name everybody in the family. And so to keep that tradition going, I'd like to mention some folks, because my mom loved my brothers and sisters who are my absolute support system. And I for them too. But I want to mention my sister Marcia and her family, my brother Steve and his family, my sister Elise and her family, my brother David and his family, my sister Rebecca and her family in Hava, and my wife Eve. She loved you all. I also want to mention my cousins Muriel and Shmuel and Debbie and Joanne and Paul and Dara and Janice and Dave and Aunt Sheila and Jay and Lisa and Bev Stock and Debbie Slitsky and Paula Block. I also want to thank the Wellspring staff who took care of my mom and the Elevation staff who took care of her also. The world is a better place because of her. And she was kind, and we can continue and honor her memory by being kind to one another. And the enormity of this loss, I'm sure, will hit me and the rest of you at some point. But the magnitude of that pain is equal to the depth of the love we had for her, and I'm willing to pay that price of that pain every time. So I just want to thank my mom for taking care of me and for everybody else.
And I also want to thank everybody so much for coming out today and being here with us. So my mom told me that when I was a baby, she used to pat me on the back and I'd pat her back. So she would pat me 3 times and I would pat her back 3 times. And that was the start of a great friendship, because in addition to being a loving parent throughout my life, my mom was a great friend to me. Whether it was listening to the record of the valiant little Taylor and acting it out with me over and over and over again, or listening to me for hours talk when I was depressed as a teenager, or helping me move out of my New York City apartment after college, or staying with me the first month my daughter was born. My mom was always there as a steadfast friend to share life's ups and downs with. She was always there for me and my siblings and our extended family, always loving and kind. The thing I want to say about my mom is that she was love and light. She loved all of her children, including her stepchildren, giving us precious time and attention. And I never had to question where I stood with her. She loved me and loved me for who I was, which is an amazing gift in life. She was a role model for being a good human being, a parent, and a friend.
Thank you, everyone. And I think the love in this room and in this world is a testament to her and what she put into the world. Our mom was someone who thoroughly loved life and loved people. She was an intellectual, but also very grounded. She found the awesomeness in life in studying geology or world history or Jewish philosophy. She took us on epic road trips. And she also found the awesomeness of life in parenthood, which was so lucky for us. She was always curious about the world and grateful for each day, for her family, for her friends, and for her children. And as a mother, she was exceptional. Her baseline concern was always for our health, But beyond that, she understood and respected that our lives belong to us. And she endured our craziness and our chaos with total grace and mostly total acceptance. But she never lost herself in parenthood. I remember as a little kid, my mom would insist on taking an hour for herself just to read. I wasn't allowed to bother her during that hour, even though it felt like the longest hour of my life. She knew what she needed out of life, and they were her simple pleasures: reading or enjoying a big plate of spaghetti, taking long walks. But she insisted on doing those things for herself so she could give back to those she loved. In a world in which we are always busy and multitasking, my mom was a master of not doing that. When she listened, she really listened. When she was with us, she was totally present. And although I took it for granted at the time, her capacity for listening to our problems was an amazing gift she gave us, especially in the hard years of adolescence. She also instilled in us a care for others and for things going on in the world. My best friend Litai and I still joke about my mom offering a healthy snack for us and in the same breath informing us about something tragic happening on the other side of the world. As kids, the mixed message was a bit much to handle, but she was always reminding us that our lives aren't small, that we are embedded in the world, and we have a responsibility to be aware of others and do something good for other people. She was always doing good for other people. In her grounded way, she was also quick to remind me that in the grand scheme of things, we're all just creatures. She used to say, "You are just a creature," when I would get myself in worried knots over exams or grades or my job or anything else. We are no different than any animal that just needs to sleep and eat. No more important and no less sacred. And as she got older, she stayed anchored to the present and gracefully accepted all the changes and small losses that came her way. She didn't protest when we had to finally take her car keys away and sell her house. She embraced the chance to make new friends, to laugh, and to relish long naps. She was a model for change and acceptance, evolution and joy, and finally death. My own children had an elementary school teacher who likened doing good things for other people as filling buckets. The metaphor is that everyone has a bucket, and either you do something good to fill another person's bucket, or your hurtfulness can empty another person's bucket. When the kids did something kind, the teacher would say, "You filled my bucket today, thank you." I look at that simple language and it's really another way of saying, "You filled my heart with your kindness." Even though I'll miss my mom terribly, she filled my heart. The bucket is permanently full. It's overflowing. She gave me everything I needed and more. So thank you, Mom. I'll always miss your friendship and I will always love you.
There's a prayer in Jewish spirituality called the Shema. And your mom loved the Shema. The idea of the Shema literally means listen, lishmoa, listen. And I like to think of this prayer as an opportunity to listen to how we're all connected to something greater than ourselves. It's like we're all creatures, like your mom taught you, and we're all sacred. So there's a Jewish mystical practice of closing your eyes or covering your eyes when people say the Shema. It's a way to go inward. And if you want to try it, you can cover your eyes now. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. And we can say the translation together if you'd like. Listen, all people who ask questions about the universe. The source of all life is an unfolding process, and everything is connected to oneness. We're going to conclude our remembering Marcia with a prayer called El Malay Rachamim, means the one overflowing with compassion. And let's read the translation if you have a copy. We'll read it together and then I'll sing the Hebrew. The one overflowing with compassion, dwelling within, above, in every dimension, offer us rest, respite, comfort, underneath the wings of divine presence. El Malay Rachamim, Shochem Bamromim, El Malay Rachamim, Shochem Bamromim, Chamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Chamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, El Malay Rachamim, Shochem Bamromim, El Malay Rachamim, Shochem Bamromim. So this concludes our chapel time together. And Jim, you want to offer some directions?
Ladies and gentlemen, we will have interment at Mount Nebo Memorial Park. If you'd like to join us for that interment, there are directions that were handed out of the sign-in book. If you didn't grab one, there's still plenty of copies there. You're welcome to follow the hearse in the family cars, but if you do, we must remind you to obey all traffic laws since we're not in procession. So if we have a stoplight to stop at, we are going to stop. If we get through, but you have to stop, please make sure to stop. We'll ask you to take your time as far as if the family wishes to greet you just for a minute or two, but please watch your timing. We do need to get to the cemetery sooner than later. Thank you very much for your attendance.